The title of this story is This Ain't No Dago Wake. I'm part Italian, so there is nothing derogatory meant by this title other than it's something that happened. This ain't no Dago Wake. We signed the death certificate and immediately went over to the funeral home to make the arrangements. When I climbed into the Camaro, I heard my mother's spirit speaking in my left ear. "I want a 2-day wake," she said. "Okay," I replied and pulled away. At the funeral parlor, they led my father and sister and me into a room to look at caskets and dresses. "A green casket for spring," I said, "and a blue dress, because Ma always loved blue." My father and sister didn't object, and Mrs. Ware agreed. The Wares buried everyone in our family. I mean, they didn't invent death. They just represented it, because they were the ones you'd see when death came sliding by. I had an aching hope that I'd outlive the legacy of the Ware ritual and be dumped in a pauper's grave like some World War III Mozart. It was the artist in me. I had too many funeral experiences anyway, like the time I was 9 and had to kiss Grandma Dynick goodbye. I was young, but I never forgot the shock of warm lips on a stone-cold face. It gave me a chill that never left. Inside Ware's was the sweet smell of flowers. From young on, I always associated fresh flowers with death. The 60s seemed to correct that flaw, but our family was big and death took its toll. So as the 60s melted away, the appearance of flowers inside began smelling like death again. As we completed the arrangement formalities, Mrs. Ware said, "Of course, you'll want a 1-day wake." "No," I replied. "Actually, we want a 2-day wake." "But they don't do that anymore," she said. "It's easier on the bereaved." "Last month, Mrs. Kulharski had a 2-day wake," I said. "What about her bereaved?" Secretly, I thought Mrs. Kulharski's bereaved had a little more cash. "Is that what you want?" Mrs. Ware asked my father and sister. "I don't know," my father said. "Hey, that's what Ma told me," I replied. 2 days. I figured after all her suffering, we should honor her last request." "You were always a pushy child," Mrs. Ware began. "I remember you selling chocolates at Easter time." "Chocolates or not, that's what we want." "Does he speak for the family?" "If that's what she wanted," my father and sister said. "You won't be able to have the services here." "Then where?" "I'll contact Coral Funeral Home and see if they can handle a 2-day visitation." "And who'll prepare the body?" "I will," Mrs. Ware said. "Fine." We shook hands. "I'm sorry about your mother," Mrs. Ware said, "but at least her agony's over." I thought of the design in that line as negotiations ended on a T.S. Eliot April day, light wind and variable gray. At the visitation, there was the usual milling about, people from all walks and generations paying respects, dialogues on how good Ma looked, grief scans and discussions on how death is the last lesson a parent can teach. I drifted into family memory, like the time when Uncle John passed on. Uncle John, the good-spirited Canadian who left Earth early. He used to give me cigarettes and Playboys and lived with a fried food passion for life. He fit right into our Polish family scheme, especially during the card games at the revolving cousins' birthday parties. The children would mingle while the adults drank whiskey and beer. There were camels and Salems hanging in the air, and silver and green lying on a wooden table as they dealt bull on high spade. when Chicago was neat and clean. I shook through what was then and focused on Aunt Isabel here and now. Aunt Isabel was married to Googie, who called her Queen and adored her in a loud Italian way. They tragically lost 2 children at birth, and I flashed on the angels carved in the headstones where they lay. Occasionally, we had cemetery picnics back when the graves could be tended and kept meticulous with the respect of floral plants in the summer and layers of pine branches in the wintertime. It let you know the earth was still alive where your loved one was buried. But then the unions took over, and all you could have on the graves was grass, and it wasn't the same. When I thought of cemeteries, sometimes I saw everybody rising from the dead on the last day, and they'd be shaking skeletal hands and talking to their cemetery neighbors. Then they'd dream their bodies into heaven for something perfect. Thinking at a wake let you feel your own vulnerability and precious seconds ticking. As I tried to line up pallbearers for Ma's burial mass, I saw my Uncle Googie bringing his mother up to view the body. She was an old woman with the heart of a lion, and her tears were the tears from another era. Suddenly she fell to her knees and let out with a gut-piercing sob, "Oh, Clara, Clara, now you are with the Lord." "God damn it, Ma! Get up! This ain't no Dago wake!" Googie yelled at her. And you could hear a pin drop or the dead rise. And I thought how his energy might start a chain reaction, like getting Ma to sit up in the casket, the way stories were told about how some dead people sat up unexpectedly. And I saw everyone in the room going crazy and racing into the street thinking it was a sign from the heavens. But none of that happened, as Googie pulled his mother up by the arm and led her away from the casket in a slow, emotional drama. And even though I knew Googie loved his mother dearly, in the echo of the moment, all the bereaved chatterers began an idle chat, as some wondered and some knew how a son could talk to a living mother like that.